Have you ever walked into a room and something just shifted? You didn't say a word, you didn't make a sound, but the moment your foot crossed that threshold, the air grew heavier. Conversations quieted, eyes moved subtly but surely. Some people stiffened, others just watched unsure of why they suddenly felt different. You didn't imagine that. It wasn't in your head. That was your aura, your energy field. And it spoke louder than your voice ever could. You see before your words reach the world, your presence does. Long before your body finds its seat, your frequency has already entered the space. It sends out a signal not to impress, not to dominate, but to simply exist fully. And when that signal is pure, aligned, and real, it stirs the room. It interrupts the flow. It shifts the vibe. Carl Jung once said, "The psyche transcends the body. You're not just flesh and bone. You are vibration. You are intention. You are energy in motion." And energy, when it's authentic, doesn't need an introduction. It arrives. Maybe that's why you've always felt out of place in shallow spaces. Maybe that's why people react to you even when you haven't spoken a word. Your presence doesn't ask for attention. It commands awareness. Not because you want to be seen, but because your energy refuses to be ignored. And in today's video, we're going to dive deep into this rare kind of energy. We'll explore 13 powerful signs that reveal your aura isn't just different, it's disruptive, it's divine. It's a quiet storm that awakens everyone around you. So if you've ever wondered why the world seems to react to your presence, this message is for you. Because maybe, just maybe, you weren't born to blend in. You were born to shift the room. Have you ever walked into a room and suddenly, without saying a word, every head turns, no one announces your arrival, no spotlight shines on you, and yet people shift. They straighten their backs, their conversations pause, some stare, some seem unsure why they feel different. That's presence, not performance, not appearance, but pure presence. You didn't demand attention, but something about you changed the energy of the space. And here's the truth. Real presence doesn't shout. It doesn't beg to be seen. It simply is, and that's enough to move everything around it. You see, when your energy is clean, when you've done the inner work, when you're living in truth, it becomes loud without noise. People feel you before they hear you, and often they can't explain why. It's not about being intimidating. It's not about status or image. It's about alignment. And when someone walks in, fully aligned with who they are, they become a mirror. And mirrors can be uncomfortable, especially in a room full of masks. You may not notice it, but you disturb the static. Not because you're trying to, but because your authenticity disrupts everything that's fake, forced, or ungrounded. Your calm, your stillness, your sincerity, they unravel pretense. And that's rare. In a world obsessed with filters and noise, your quiet energy becomes revolutionary. Some might feel curious around you, like they want to know more. Others might pull away, confused by what they sense but can't name. That's because you carry something people can't fake. And in today's world, truth feels unfamiliar. But here's the thing, you're not doing anything wrong. You're not being too much or too quiet. You're just being real. And that kind of realness leaves a mark, whether you speak or not. So if you've ever wondered why rooms grow quiet when you enter, why people glance longer than they should, it's not about what you're wearing. It's not even about what you say. It's about what you carry. Your presence speaks. Your energy walks in before your body does. And when it's aligned, truthful, and clear, it doesn't need to explain itself. It simply changes the room. That's your power, and that's only the beginning. Have you ever noticed that sometimes just by being yourself, people react strangely around you? You're not attacking. You're not judging. You're simply showing up calm, aware, and honest. And yet, someone pulls away. Someone else snaps. The room suddenly feels heavier. It's not your fault. It's your energy. When you're living with authenticity, when you've done the work to be emotionally awake and spiritually aligned, you become a mirror. And not everyone is ready to see their own reflection. Carl Jung called it the shadow, the part of ourselves we deny, suppress, or reject. The wounded ego, the unhealed hurt. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Your very presence can bring their shadow to the surface. You didn't ask for this role. But when you walk into a space holding light, that light automatically exposes what's been hiding in the dark. People might feel defensive around you without knowing why. They may say you're too much, too intense, or too quiet. But what they really mean is, you make me feel something I've been avoiding. And here's what's powerful. It's not because you're trying to change anyone. It's because you've already changed yourself. You've chosen to face your wounds, to stop pretending, to live honestly, and that choice makes others question what they've been running from. Think of it this way. You're walking through a fog carrying a lantern. Some will thank you for the light. Others will curse you for showing them the fog they were trying so hard not to see. But the fog was always there. You just didn't let it stay invisible. So if you've ever wondered, why do people react so strongly to me? This might be why. You're not the problem, you're just clear. And clarity can be uncomfortable to those still hiding. But don't shrink because someone else hasn't faced their shadow yet. Don't dim your light to make others feel safe in their illusions. You're not here to babysit their denial. You're here to embody truth even when it's inconvenient. Because someone out there needs to see someone who's done the work. Someone out there is looking for the mirror that doesn't lie. And maybe, just maybe, you're the mirror they didn't know they needed. Have you ever noticed that animals seem to calm down when you're around? That babies stare at you a little longer, not with fear, but with curiosity and ease? Or that when you sit quietly in nature, even the birds don't rush to flee? This isn't random, and it's definitely not just your imagination. It's your energy. You see, the world isn't only reacting to what you say or do, it's responding to what you are. Children and animals, they don't understand words the way adults do. They feel vibration. They pick up on intention, presence, and energy. And when someone shows up with an honest, grounded, and non-threatening presence, they know it. You don't need to speak. You don't need to try. You simply are, and that alone creates a field of safety and harmony. That's why dogs might follow you, why babies might laugh around you, why flowers seem more vibrant after you walk through a garden. It's not magic, but it is energetic alignment. When you've done the inner work, when you've peeled away the layers of performance and pretense, you return to something real, something ancient, something deeply natural. And the natural world, animals, children, even trees, they notice. They recognize peace. They trust authenticity. They gravitate toward what's true. This is the gift of aligned energy. It doesn't shout. It doesn't demand. It doesn't need to be the center of attention. It simply exists, and in doing so, everything around it begins to soften. So if you've ever wondered why you're the one the stray cat approaches, why children seem to light up when you enter the room, why nature feels more alive when you're present, it's because you see without judgment, you exist without resistance, you feel without fear, and the world, the wild, untamed, beautiful world, recognizes that as rare. You don't just walk through life, you resonate through it, and that resonance is what they're responding to. Have you ever walked into a room and suddenly the energy just shifts? No one says it out loud, but people glance over, fidget, or start talking louder than usual. Some laugh awkwardly, others go quiet, and you're just standing there not doing anything special. That is not a coincidence. You're not imagining it. You're simply someone whose presence reveals what others are trying to hide. When your energy is grounded, clear, and aligned, it shines light. And light naturally exposes shadows, not to shame anyone, but to make what's real visible. To people who haven't faced their own wounds, yet that light can feel threatening. Not because you're doing anything wrong, but because just being in your presence makes them feel like they can't fake it anymore. They sense that you see through things, not through judgment, but through quiet truth. So they perform, they overtalk, they overcompensate, they try to dominate the conversation or make jokes to cover discomfort. But inside, they're unsettled, not because you are scary, but because they feel exposed around you, even if you haven't said a word. And here's the wild part. You're not trying to make anyone uncomfortable. You're not judging. You're not accusing. You're just being you. But being you in a world where many are still pretending is a radical act. Carl Jung once said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul." And sometimes your presence invites them even silently to do just that. So if you've ever felt like people avoid eye contact with you, or treat you strangely without any clear reason, remember this. It's not because there's something wrong with your energy. It's because your energy is honest. And honesty, even in silence, can feel loud to someone who hasn't made peace with their truth yet. Let that sink in. You don't need to speak to be powerful. Your presence, when authentic, speaks louder than words ever could. And yes, some will be uncomfortable, but others will feel deeply seen, and those are the ones who are ready to grow. Have you ever walked into a room, and before you even speak, everything changes? People stop talking. Someone suddenly sits up straighter. Another person glances over, then quickly looks away. There's a hush, like the air itself is listening. It's not magic, it's energy. You carry something with you that most people can't explain, but everyone feels. It's not about your clothes, your words, or even your body language. It's about your frequency, the silent vibration that enters before you do. And that frequency, it's ancient. It holds layers of experience, intuition, and truth, not just from this lifetime, but from those who came before you. Some call it ancestral wisdom, others call it an old soul presence. But whatever name you give it, people notice it, even if they can't put it into words. They feel something when you walk in. For some, it's peace. For others, it's discomfort. And for many, it's a mix of both. Because when someone carries aligned energy, calm, clear, unshaken, it becomes a mirror. It reflects back to others what's unbalanced in themselves. That's why some people might fidget around you. Why others get quiet or try to impress you. Why they sense something is different even if they can't explain why. Carl Jung once wrote, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." Your energy sparks that reaction, and it's often unconscious. You don't have to do anything. You just show up and rooms recalibrate, because your presence isn't just personal, it's spiritual. You carry within you the voice of your ancestors, the imprint of soul journeys, and a frequency that reminds others of something they've forgotten or aren't ready to face. And that's not a burden, that's a gift. You were never meant to blend in, you were meant to awaken. So if you've ever wondered why people act strangely around you, too polite, too distant, too intense, understand this. Your presence activates something inside them, and not everyone is ready for that activation. Some will be drawn to you, some will avoid you, and some will try to understand you but never fully succeed. But your role was never to be understood. Your role is to be, to hold your ground, to walk in truth, to carry the vibration of clarity in a noisy, distracted world. So the next time you enter a room and feel the shift, don't shrink. Don't question yourself. Stand tall. You're not the one disturbing the peace. You're revealing what peace actually feels like. And for some, that's the first time they've felt it in a long, long while. Have you ever listened to someone speak, but felt like their words weren't telling the whole story? Maybe they smiled and said, "I'm fine," but something in you whispered they're not. Maybe they praised someone, but you could sense the envy hiding underneath. Or you heard laughter, but felt sadness woven through every note. That's not imagination. That's intuition. That's energy reading, and it's a gift. Carl Jung called it symbolic perception, the ability to perceive emotional frequencies beyond logic, beyond language. You don't just hear what people say, you feel what they mean, even when they can't admit it to themselves. And this can be both beautiful and heavy, because while others are navigating the surface, you're already swimming in the deep end. You pick up on the unspoken stories behind the words, the energy behind the expression, the silent heartbreak behind the brave face. It's like tuning into a radio station. Only you can hear one that broadcasts the truth underneath every conversation. You might notice how someone's eyes dart away when they lie, or how their body tenses when a topic hits too close. You catch the tremble in their voice when they talk about something they moved on from. And you're not trying to be intrusive. It just happens. You feel the room, you read the tone, you hear the silence between the sentences. But here's the thing. This ability isn't about judgment, it's about understanding. Because when you can see the pain behind someone's anger, the fear behind their arrogance, the loneliness behind their need for attention, you start relating differently. You start responding with compassion instead of frustration. You become the one person in their life who sees them, truly sees them, and that can be incredibly healing for both of you. But it also means you can't pretend the way others do. You can't sit in fake conversations or play along with surface-level masks. You crave honesty, depth, realness. You were built to sense what lies beneath, not just for others, but eventually for yourself too. So if you've ever wondered why you just know things about people, why you can sense who to trust or avoid within seconds, why some conversations exhaust you without explanation, now you know. It's not a flaw, it's not too much, it's awareness, it's soul vision. And in a world full of noise, people like you are rare because you don't just hear what's being said, you listen to what's not being said. And that is where the truth lives. Have you ever been stuck in a conversation about the weather and felt like your soul was quietly slipping out the back door? You nod, you smile, you say, "Oh yeah, it's been raining all week." But inside you're screaming, "Is this really it? Is this all we're going to talk about?" It's not that you're rude. It's not that you think you're better than anyone. It's just that your soul is hungry for something more. You crave truth, depth, real connection. You want to know what keeps someone up at night, what breaks their heart, what dreams they secretly carry that they've never said out loud. You want to talk about healing, growth, synchronicities, or even just silence that says more than words ever could. Because when someone speaks from their soul, you feel it. You light up. You come alive. You feel home. And when they don't, you feel like you're suffocating in a room full of perfectly rehearsed lines. You can sense when someone's words are coming from their mind, not their heart, and it drains you. Carl Jung once said that the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. But for you, there's no reaction in surface-level chatter. There's no transformation in talk about weekend sales or celebrity gossip. What you want is resonance, the kind that vibrates through your body and says, "Yes, this is real, this is human, this is why I'm here." You're not alone in this. In fact, it's one of the clearest signs that you're becoming more spiritually awake. Because the more awake you become, the harder it is to participate in things that lack meaning. The more you heal, the more you seek others who have looked into their own darkness and found the light. And maybe, just maybe, you've become that person for someone else. Someone who feels safe opening up when they're with you, who skips the small talk and dives right into the deep waters of their soul. You see, awakened people recognize each other, often in silence, often with just one look. There's a sense of home in the way you speak, in the questions you ask, in your refusal to settle for less than truth. So if you've ever felt weird or too intense because you'd rather talk about inner wounds than office gossip, let me tell you something. You're not too much. You're just tuned in. And the world needs that. Because in a world obsessed with noise, you are the invitation to go deeper, to be real, to feel again. And when you meet someone who speaks that same emotional language, who skips the scripts and goes straight to the soul, you'll feel it, like coming home. Have you ever walked into a room and suddenly someone starts acting strange? Maybe they go quiet. Maybe they start over-explaining themselves. Or worse, maybe they throw subtle shade at you out of nowhere, and you're left wondering, what did I even do? Here's the truth: you didn't do anything. You just showed up in your truth, in your light, in your calm presence. And that alone was enough to make someone else uncomfortable. Why? Because your energy shines a light on the very things they're trying to keep hidden. Not because you're judging, not because you're trying to expose anyone, but because your authenticity has a way of reflecting people back to themselves. And when someone is living behind masks of ego, of insecurity, of unhealed wounds, your presence feels like a mirror they didn't ask for. Carl Jung called this projection. It's when someone takes the parts of themselves they refuse to face and throws them onto someone else, and often that someone else is you. You may have noticed this pattern in your life. Some people admire you deeply, but it feels almost too intense. Some people get defensive around you, even though you've done nothing wrong. Some try to compete with you, even when you're not playing any game. What's happening is energetic. You've become a contrast. Their inauthenticity clashes with your truth. Their chaos gets stirred by your clarity. Their wounds ache when you stand in your wholeness. It's not your fault, and it's not something you need to fix, but it is something to understand so that you stop taking it personally. Because the truth is, some people will love your light, and others will resent it because it reminds them they've been living in the dark. They'll react in different ways. Some might pull away and avoid you. Some might talk behind your back or throw passive-aggressive comments. Others might act overly nice, almost performative, because deep down they're intimidated. But none of these reactions are truly about you. They're about them and what your energy reveals. Here's the beautiful and sometimes painful paradox of being a light in the world. You will illuminate the beauty in people, but you'll also expose their shadows. You'll inspire truth, but you might also disrupt illusions. You'll heal, and you might also confront. And if you've ever felt too much, too intense, too triggering just by being yourself, please know this. You are not the problem. You are the light that reminds people of what they've forgotten within themselves. So keep shining. Don't shrink to make others comfortable with their own shadows. Don't apologize for the way your energy reveals the truth, because sometimes the most powerful form of healing is simply being a mirror. And if that makes someone uncomfortable, maybe it's exactly the medicine their soul has been avoiding. There's something profoundly powerful about a person who walks into a room and says absolutely nothing. No performance, no need to dominate the conversation, just presence calm, grounded, and quietly intense. Have you ever met someone like that? The kind of person whose silence doesn't feel empty, but full of awareness, of energy, of something you can't quite explain. That's not a coincidence. That's a sign of someone who has learned to master their inner world. You see, in a world that constantly rewards loudness, loud opinions, loud personalities, loud distractions, there's something deeply unsettling yet magnetic about stillness. And that's where your power lives. When your silence comes from peace, not from fear. When it comes from groundedness, not suppression, it becomes a force that shifts the entire room. People start fidgeting, some overtalk. Others try to fill the air with anything: jokes, gossip, even meaningless small talk, because your presence invites them to feel something they often avoid: stillness. That stillness, it holds truth, and most people aren't ready for that Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And when you do, when you no longer feel the need to prove, to perform, to over-explain, you become a mirror to those still seeking validation through noise. You've probably noticed this in your life. You walk into a room and suddenly the energy shifts. Someone starts explaining things you didn't ask about. Another person laughs too loudly at something not that funny. Someone else gives you a look, curious, unsure, maybe even threatened. And yet you haven't said a word. That's the power of embodied presence. That's the authority of someone who doesn't need to speak to be heard. Because silence, true silence, is not the absence of sound. It's the presence of inner alignment. It's the sound of a soul that no longer seeks permission to exist. And while others may speak to hide their discomfort, you remain still because you are no longer at war with yourself. So if you've ever felt like the quiet one, the observer, the too intense presence that makes people nervous without trying, don't shrink. Don't fill the silence just to make others more comfortable. Because in a world that's screaming for attention, your silence is sacred. It's not weakness, it's wisdom. It says, I don't need to outshine anyone. I just need to be. And that is a power that speaks louder than words ever could. Have you ever noticed how certain people just disappear from your life? No drama, no explanation. They just fade out. And then, almost without effort, others show up. People who feel aligned, genuine, solid, like they see something in you that doesn't need to be explained. This isn't random. You didn't push anyone away. You didn't chase anyone down. What's happening is energetic. You see, your energy has become a filter. You're no longer broadcasting confusion, neediness, or the urge to be liked. You're not asking for approval, you're offering presence. And presence is powerful. When you operate from authenticity, your energy does the sorting for you. You don't have to say, I want real people in my life. You become a space where only the real feel at home. The fake ones, they feel uncomfortable. Not because you judge them, but because their masks don't work around you. They may even feel exposed, and they won't always know why. You're not doing anything aggressive. You're just being honest with yourself, honest in your presence. And in a world full of performance, that honesty is like spiritual X-ray vision. You're not here to be palatable to everyone. You're not meant to be the easy one, the safe one, or the one who plays along just to avoid tension. You are a mirror, a reflector of what's real. And sometimes that makes people uncomfortable. But the ones who stay, the ones who lean in, who open up, who show you their scars, their dreams, their truth, those are your people. They're not threatened by your light. They're nourished by it. They don't feel the need to compete, impress, or dominate. They just want to connect with something true. Carl Jung once said that loneliness doesn't come from being alone. It comes from being surrounded by people who don't reflect your truth. That's why when your energy shifts, your circle changes. You might go through a season of solitude. You might feel like no one gets you for a while. But that's not a void. That's sacred space being cleared for the right souls to find you. The moment you stop chasing validation is the moment you become magnetic to depth, to truth, to people who are done pretending. So if people walk away without reason, let them. That was your energy saying this space is for something real. And if you're still waiting for your people, don't shrink to fill the silence. Hold your frequency. You are not a trend. You are a sanctuary, a place where truth doesn't have to hide, because you weren't born to blend in. You were born to become a lighthouse, not for everyone, but for those who are finally ready to come home to themselves. There's a kind of calm that isn't soft. It doesn't come from comfort. It comes from survival. If you've ever met someone who feels steady like a mountain, you might wonder, how are they so grounded? So unshakable? Chances are it's because they've walked through fire and didn't burn. They've met chaos and learned not to react, but to rise. You see, the calm you carry isn't because life spared you. It's because you've been broken before, shattered even. And instead of staying there, you rebuilt, piece by piece, wound by wound, truth by truth. That's not weakness. That's warrior energy. You might not wear armor. You don't raise your voice to prove your strength. But when you speak, people listen, not because you demand attention, but because your presence says, I've seen things, I've faced myself, and I'm still standing. And that commands respect. There's a difference between people who avoid the dark and those who have made peace with it. You didn't avoid the shadows. You walked through them. You sat with your pain instead of running from it. You learned how to breathe when everything felt suffocating. And now people feel safe around you, not because you have all the answers, but because you're not afraid of the questions. They sense it. That quiet strength, that silence that isn't awkward. It's sacred. You're not calm because life is easy. You're calm because you've outgrown the chaos. You no longer react just to prove you're alive. You don't chase closure or clap back at every insult. You've realized not everything deserves your energy, and that is power. True warriors don't need to show their scars to prove they've fought. They carry them in their energy, in the way they pause before speaking, in the way they listen with presence, in the way they can stand still when others panic. So if you've ever wondered why people say they feel different around you, why they feel calm or seen or just held in your energy, it's because you're not pretending. You've earned your stillness. You've learned that peace isn't the absence of conflict. It's the refusal to let conflict control you. You've learned that strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's just a deep breath, a soft no, or walking away without needing to explain why. You didn't become this way overnight. It took pain, reflection, and the willingness to let go of who you thought you had to be. So when people look at you with quiet respect, even if they don't say it, know this, they're recognizing something ancient in you, the soul of a warrior who found their peace, not because the world offered it, but because you chose to create it. Have you ever had someone say to you, I don't know why, but I feel calm around you? Or maybe someone you barely know suddenly opens up about their life without you asking a single question. That's not a coincidence. That's your energy doing the work. Some people heal with their words. You heal with your presence. You don't need to fix anyone. You don't need to offer advice. Just by being you, authentic, grounded, and real people feel like they can finally take the mask off. And that's rare. Most people spend their day performing, smiling when they're tired, laughing when they're hurting, acting okay when their soul is screaming. But when they're with you, something shifts. Your presence says you're safe, you're seen, you can rest here. That's a powerful gift. Because it's not about doing anything. It's about being something. Your energy carries peace, but not the kind that's passive. It's the peace that comes from someone who's done their own inner work. Someone who has faced pain, looked it in the eye, and made it through the other side. You know what it feels like to be in the dark. And maybe that's why your light feels so real to others. They can sense it, even if they don't have the words for it. You're the type of person that makes people want to be better, not because you told them to, but because being around you reminds them of what's possible. You don't just soothe, you awaken. You make people pause and reflect, not because you judge them, but because suddenly they feel the contrast between who they are and who they could become. It's uncomfortable sometimes, but it's honest. And honesty, when delivered with love, heals deeper than any advice ever could. Think about it. How many people walk through life starving for someone to simply see them, without expectation, without agenda? You do that naturally. And it's why some people are drawn to you like a magnet. It's why children, animals, even strangers at the grocery store linger a little longer around you. They're not just attracted to your kindness, they're responding to your frequency. You are a reminder that real connection still exists. That quiet doesn't mean emptiness, it can mean presence. That empathy isn't weakness, it's a superpower. So if you've ever wondered why people come to you when they're breaking, or why you always seem to hold space even without saying much, know this: you're not just healing others, you're giving them permission to heal themselves. And in a world filled with noise, distractions, and performance, that kind of energy, it's sacred. You don't need to try harder. You don't need to be more. Just keep showing up as you, because that alone is changing lives more than you realize. Have you ever walked into a room and felt like you just didn't belong? Not because you were unworthy, but because everything around you felt off, too perfect, too rehearsed, too fake. And deep down, you knew your energy didn't match the performance. It wasn't arrogance, it wasn't judgment, it was truth-sensing illusion. You were never meant to blend in. You weren't designed to fit into systems built on pretense, shallow smiles, or hollow rituals. You were born to disrupt them, to awaken what's real in people who have forgotten how to be. You're what I call a silent storm. You don't need to raise your voice. You don't need to challenge people directly. Just by existing authentically, you shake the very foundation of what's false. People might say you're intense, or too deep, or too much. But what they're really feeling is their own mask slipping in your presence. You're the kind of person that makes others question why they're pretending, why they're settling, why they're hiding. And that makes some people uncomfortable, not because you're unkind, but because your presence is honest. Honest in a world that thrives on filters and facades. You might have struggled with this growing up, feeling like the outsider, being told to tone it down, to not take things so seriously, to smile more. But here's the truth they never told you. You weren't born to entertain the illusion. You were born to expose it. You are the quiet revolution, the calm presence that destabilizes manipulation, the peaceful soul that refuses to play a false game. And yes, it can be lonely, being the one who sees through the surface, being the one who can't just go along with what feels wrong. But your role is sacred. You don't tear things down out of anger. You challenge what's false by being real, consistently, gently, but undeniably. You make others ask deeper questions. You remind them of what authenticity feels like. You stir a quiet ache in them to come home to themselves. Not everyone will appreciate it. Some will resist you. Others will project onto you. A few will even walk away. But the ones who stay, they're the ones ready to grow, and ready to meet themselves for the first time beneath the roles, the performances, the pleasing, because of you. So if you've ever wondered why your energy seems to shake the room, why people seem nervous around you, or why you never could fake a smile in an environment that felt wrong, know this: you are the mirror that doesn't lie. And that is power. Not loud, not flashy, but rooted, soulful, and unstoppable. Keep showing up as you are. The world doesn't need more copies, it needs more truth. And you, my friend, are the quiet force reminding it what that looks like. If you've ever felt like you just don't belong in this world, like your emotions are too deep, your truth too loud, or your soul just doesn't fit into the noise and pretense of modern life, let me tell you something important. That's not a flaw. It's a signal. It means you were never meant to conform. You were meant to awaken. You're not broken. You're built for something higher. You were born to stir what's asleep in others, to remind people of what's real when everything around them feels artificial. And that role, while powerful, is often misunderstood. It can feel lonely, yes, because truth usually walks alone before it becomes a light for others. But don't let that loneliness convince you that you're wrong for being who you are. You're not here to dim your light just so others can feel comfortable in the dark. You're here to shine to challenge the shallow with your depth, to lead by simply existing in full alignment, to be the permission others need to be real. And if the world doesn't always understand you, that's okay. Your presence is not a mistake. It's medicine. So stop apologizing for your intensity. Stop shrinking yourself so others don't feel exposed. Stop second-guessing the space you take up. Because your energy, your aura, was never meant to be hidden. It was meant to be felt. You're not just different. You're designed that way for a reason. You're the reminder. The wake-up call. The soul who shakes people gently, then profoundly. And that, my friend, is not a burden. It's a gift. So walk this world with your head high, your heart open, and your energy unapologetically present. Because this world doesn't need more silence. It needs more truth. And that truth might just sound like you.